your host, Mimosa,
and co-host Kareem.
Welcome to Sometimes We're Boujee and Sometimes We Hood, to healing, navigating grief. It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance. Welcome in. Welcome to Sometimes We're Boujee,
Sometimes Hood,
a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembrance. I'm your host, Auntie Mimosa. Oh no, I lost Cousin Kareem. Where did he go? Well, and whether you're in the depths of grief, slowly learning to live with loss, or supporting someone on their journey, this space is for you. Grief is deeply personal. There's no timeline, no rule book, and no right way to navigate it. But through shared experiences, honest conversations, and moments of reflection, we can find comfort, understanding, and hope. Each episode will dive into the emotions that come with loss, anger, sadness, guilt, acceptance, and talk with experts, survivors, and those who have walked this path. You are not alone in your grief, and together we will move forward, honoring the past while embracing the present. Today, we're talking about a kind of grief that doesn't often have a funeral or a clear beginning: the grief of never knowing real love.
Wow.
Right. So, what do you say to that, Cousin Kareem?
That's a deep one. I mean, that's a real topic. I mean, you got, especially with dudes, right? Be like, love. Most dudes, until you get older, maybe in your 30s, you start realizing lust is not love. Just because she's giving up the coochie don't mean. Can I say coochie? Well, I'll just say it anyway. Because she gave up the coochie don't mean that's love. She could be wanting the same thing. She could be getting it more than you. So it's not really an association. But then you start realizing what the term love means. And then when you start to think about it on your level as an adult, especially from the male perspective, you start thinking back like, what is love? Like, do I know love?
Right.
And then you start going back into and you start looking back at your past and you start looking at your relationships with the older people in your life. And you're like, like, was that really love when I got slapped in the back of the head and I got beat down the hallway with an extension cord, that old say, I'm doing this because I love you. And it's just like, you look back and you're like, wait a minute. You start pondering. And then you go back to your relationship and then you start looking at the other person like, when you say this love word, what do you mean when you say that?
Right.
And you start to realize love is more of an action than it is words. And then you start looking for the actions.
Right.
And sometimes you even realize that you really gave up on love because it was there before, but you didn't realize what it was because you didn't know what it was. And now that you're realizing what it is, you're like, oh, snap. She was in love with me.
Right. Right.
Right. So, but anyway, that's the way I look at it. That's a crazy question right there.
Right. So, of course, I guess some people want to know, like, how does this relate to grief? So, like, how grief isn't always about losing what we had, that individual, that child, parent, it's not always about, losing, like we've had in the previous episodes where we stated that, grief covers loss of loved ones, personal items, pets, jobs, relationships. So, but sometimes, we never did. Right?
Yep.
And we often think of grief as something that follows a loss. Like I said, a person, a relationship, a moment we once had and cherished. But grief isn't always about what we had. Sometimes it's about what we never did, right? So the love we never received, right? The safety we never felt, the connection we spent years hoping for, but truly, truly never found. And it's like this kind of grief is quieter and harder to name
Yeah.
because there's no funeral for it, there's no goodbye. It's just an ache that lives in a space where something should have been and it wasn't there. And yet it's still grief. It's just as real and is just as worthy of tenderness, right?
Yep.
So, like, so this is going to be a space for honesty with us, with you and I, and not shame. And I genuinely hope that our viewers and listeners, when they hear this episode, they take a moment of reflection to think about love in their life and when they didn't have it and when they did have it, or what was supposed to be love and it wasn't, right?
And when they understood what love is, when you finally reach that understanding of what love is to you, because I think that's a different thing. Some people, love is something is different for everybody
Right.
because of the way that we were raised, possibly, and then because of how your parents were raised and their parents, it all trickles down.
Right.
It all trickles down. And you don't know that your love is different than somebody else's until you actually talk about it.
That conversation, right?
Yeah.
That adults in relationships are supposed to have, right?
Supposed to.
So keep right. That conversation adults in relationships are supposed to have. So with that being said, right? So what is this kind of grief? So this is grieving the absence of deep romantic love, safety, emotional intimacy, and or unconditional care. We're going to stop right there for a minute. I just had a conversation with an individual yesterday. It was a male. And he brought up the fact that I was very guarded in the conversation we were having. And I told him, yes, that I was extremely guarded. And he was like, your wall is like really, really high. I said, extremely high. Extremely. And I explained like my life to him briefly. And I also told him that the man that deals with me in the future definitely has to come to a comprehension that in order for me to let my guard down, I have to feel safe. Okay.
Yeah.
And not just safe in the physical, safe in the mental, safe emotionally, safe financially. Okay. I have to feel safe on all those levels, mentally, physically, emotional, financially, and spiritually. I have to feel safe in order for me to let my guard down and really become my softer feminine self. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Right. Um what is your take on this about
Being guarded?
grieving, grieving the absence of deep romantic love, that safety, that emotional intimacy, or and or that unconditional care? What is your take on this?
My take on it I shouldn't say just.
Mm-hmm.
It happens to, I think, it's common for men. It's looked at uncommonly for women,
Mm.
but it's almost like as if we're prone to not be emotional. And because we're not supposed to be emotional, we're supposed to be rugged and tough and rah rah. You know what I mean? That
Mm-hmm.
when men start talking about love, dudes are like, you can't have that barbershop conversation about that. You know what I mean? You can't have that conversation. And people are like,
Right.
oh, here we
You're
go.
not
You know what
supposed
I
to
mean?
talk about your feelings.
Yeah, and it's just, but if men really understood how the lack of thereof, but then again, for the
Mm-hmm.
dudes who do get that motherly love, like I look at my wife and my son, and I
Okay.
know he's going to be loved. You know what I mean? He's going to understand love. He has no problem hugging and kissing his mom. He had a problem hugging and kissing me, but he's getting over that because he was just like, "Oh, you're a guy," like he's
Mhm.
like, you know,
Oh, so he learned that early, huh?
yeah. So he's just like, but then
Mhm.
so we're breaking down that wall because I want him to understand, which
Mhm.
I realized, what I talked about yesterday is that he's very competitive.
Mhm.
He has my competitiveness where he gets angry.
Mm.
I've expressed my anger issues earlier in this show, a couple of shows, but I see it in
Mhm.
him now, and so I had him sit on my lap yesterday. I hugged him, and I was explaining to him about games versus sports. I said we're
Mhm.
playing a game amongst family. The competitiveness is fine, but
Mhm.
not to the point where you got to run out the room and start banging on the bed and putting your face in the pillow and yelling. Like it's not that serious.
Mhm.
Playing sports, team sports, a little bit different. I understand that. But
Right.
I realized that not having a father, not having an over loving mom,
Right.
that nobody ever taught me how to curb my emotions.
Mm.
So with the emotions and emotion of love
Mhm.
and not having that
Mhm.
a lot and not having the aspect of learned behavior from a father who was living with me,
Right.
I never understood the emotional turmoil, or that's not the word I'm looking for, but the setback of not having anybody there to learn how to control my emotions. But then also too, learning about love later on in life, I didn't realize I didn't know love until
Mhm.
talking about it with other people. And it's like I never had that. Like I never, somebody's talking like, oh yeah, this you should have a come home is it, and you're like,
Mhm.
and you start listening to people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah." And you sit back there, and you realize that you're not joining the conversation
Mhm.
because you didn't have that. That's a trying time. It's almost, pain. Not it is painful, but it's traumatic when you
Right.
realize that the love that you thought you had acquired from said people in your life wasn't present. And so, what am I basing off my love off of? My thought quote
Mhm.
of love is, and you become closed off.
Right.
I think out of not knowing, out of being abandoned, being ashamed that you're
Mhm.
of this age and you have no concept of it because it was hardly shown to you. Again, back to the question, that generally happens with dudes. But when it
Mhm.
happens for women, you tend to see the stronger base, more forward based women. That tends to be their lifestyle because they weren't exposed. And then when you see somebody like the dude approach you or told you, you seem
Mhm.
guarded. It's just like, okay, there's a story. It's just like, but do I want to hear the story?
Right.
Do I want to be that muse to be able to talk to have that person talk, that lady or woman talk to me so I can guide them through releasing the pain, throw it
Right.
off?
Okay.
Or do I want to just ignore her and say she's not worth it, the time, the effort, and walk away and
Mm.
not be that friend? Because that's for somebody else, not you, but somebody else told me that. They were like,
Right.
Why should I? She literally said, "Why should I tell you my story? You're what? We're co-workers. Like, what investment do you have in me investing all of this time and effort to explain for you to
Mm-hmm.
just be like, psh, anyway, next." You know what I mean?
Right, right. So,
I
or
don't know. Is that your experience
do you
in the
think it has right? No, because I have not. Um, I'm an open book. Okay. And excuse me, I don't think somebody doesn't want me to talk today for real. Um, I'm an open book when it comes to my life because I feel that the trauma that I endured in the past has to be known. Excuse me. It has to be known in order for a male suitor to like really get to know me or get to understand or comprehend who I am as a woman.
Yeah,
Because without knowing that past, without knowing that history, you have no idea how to work with me going into the future. Okay. So I'm not my past. However, excuse me, my past helps an individual comprehend. Okay. It helps an individual comprehend the trauma and the things that have taken place that has made me who I am today.
right,
And
right.
I also want to say, like, talk about our generation. Oh, goodness, excuse me.
Take a
Generation
sip.
X, right?
Is that what
We're
we are?
X. We are
Oh,
Generation X.
okay. I have no
Okay.
idea. So,
Hmm.
that makes sense though.
Right. So we're Generation X, roughly between 1965 to 1980. Okay. And our quote unquote key traits are independent, resourceful, skeptical, and adaptable. Right? Right?
Definitely.
And we grew up during a time, like you say, shifting of social values, the rise of dual income households and divorce. Excuse me. Oh, geez. We witnessed the rise of personal computers, MTV. We're one of the first to like really explore computers and the internet. And we're like described like as the middle child between the boomers and the millennials, right? Um,
Gotcha.
so and I know sometimes, excuse me, social media jokes about our generation because we a lot of us come from households where our parents were not
Present.
affectionate. No, we're affectionate. Okay. Some I was saying affectionate. You said
Yeah.
you said he said that all.
We were latchkey kids. So we raised them, the neighborhood raised
Right.
them.
I was getting to that. Okay, he said wasn't present. Okay, but yes, we were we were latchkey kids. You
Yeah.
know, we like it's almost like we can tell that story. Depending on where you lived, you can tell
Yeah.
the story. Oh, we walked a mile home from school in the snow up to our waist. You know what I'm saying? Some of us can tell that story.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Real talk though.
Depending,
That's what
right.
happened back in our days in New York. For real.
Depending on where you lived, right?
Yeah, depending on where you live
So
at. For real.
key around your neck, you lose your key, you
Yeah,
in
get
trouble.
your ass whooped.
You're in
Yeah.
trouble. For real. Okay.
Yeah.
Played outside, your time to come home, street
Street lights.
you better be in front of the house. You may not have to come inside, but you better be in front of your house, on
Yeah.
your stoop, on your steps, on the porch, whatever.
Don't let
But
me call you more than 2 times. Don't let me call your name
exactly,
more than two
I
times.
better
You
not,
ain't here.
right?
Yeah.
And you better not be around the corner somewhere. I think we had really good hearing as kids because if we did go around the corner, you heard your name,
Yeah, for real.
you
No,
stopped.
or you have friends that were good enough to relay. Yo, Kareem's mom's calling. Yo,
Mhm.
yo, Kareem's
Mhm.
mom calling. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden it gets to you, and it's like, and you coming
Flying
right.
around the corner, right?
Yep. I was
Oh,
about to call your name one last
goodness.
time.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
So, oh goodness. So, but that we come from, like I said, parents who, a lot of them, single mothers, single mother households,
yeah,
and or if there were two parents in the household, both parents worked. Okay, they worked long hours, and like we said, latchkey kids, key around our neck, better not lose your key. When you came home, you made a phone call to mom and dad at work, I'm home. They may have had something for you, depending on, like I said, depending on your demographics and where you lived at. Lunch was made or a snack was at the home. If not, there's money on the dresser. Take that $5, go to the corner store, get you whatever snacks. You got 10 minutes to get to the store, get your snacks, and come back home and call me and let me know you home. You know what I'm saying? That's what I experienced.
yeah.
And I know everybody's kind of like different. Yes, we drank water from water hoses straight from the
For
spigot.
real, for real.
It
Play
didn't
in the
matter.
fire hydrant. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It did. The water hose was on the ground in the grass. We
Yeah.
did not care. We picked it up, turned the water hose, and we drank from it. Okay,
Shit, that's
I
what
think
made us immune to every damn thing.
right.
I didn't know about flu shots until I was in my 20s. I was like, a flu
Okay,
shot?
right. What is that? I didn't know about flu shot until I started working at the hospital, and I was like,
Yeah.
what is a flu? I don't get
Shit, I drank out of freaking
flu.
hoses.
Right. We were good. But yeah, so we, like I said, we come from parents who they weren't
Yeah.
affectionate, you know.
Distant parenting. Like
Right.
distant learning. We had distant parenting in some
And
cases.
so that love, like if you grew up in a household like that, you had no idea what what intimate love look like or affectionate love look like, not unless you saw
Yeah.
it on TV, and then that wasn't too much, but maybe like holding hands, you know what I'm saying? But when you have that absence, like it can feel empty, it can feel longing, and sometimes resentment or even self-blame, right? So sometimes people say you can't miss what you never had, but we all know that's not true.
For real.
The body and soul will still feel the lack of, right? Um and even if you never experience real love, the space where it should have been still aches. It's hollow. It can echo loneliness, longing, confusion, and this grief can be silent. It is silent because it's hard to name, and because others may not recognize it, and because it's unseen, it doesn't mean it's not real, right? And missing what you never had is a real kind of loss, and it deserves to be honored, right? So I would say that when that happens, you may hear someone say, I've never experienced true love, or I don't know what real love is because I didn't have it as a child. I don't know what real love is, or I never experienced the affection and as a kid with my parents or with my mother or my grandmother. I would want to hug and kiss on them, and they're pushing me away, go away, go away, go away. Or as a young lady or as a little girl growing up, that relationship with the father wasn't there because the father was absent. So the little girl, right, doesn't know what or how or what love is supposed to look like from a man, so to speak. So that leads us into like attachment wounds, childhood neglect, and trauma, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about that, Kareem. We talked about the discipline of Gen X, right?
It's hard.
our and it even goes back to the discipline of our parents and grandparents, you know. Um, and each set of parent was raised with the knowledge of how their parents raised them. And I want to say probably when it did get to Gen X, it was like we're not raising our children the same way. And that's where, as they say, that social shift took place, where parenting started to look different. Okay. Because I know I did not spank my sons, or I would no, I'm gonna say I didn't beat my sons. Okay. Put it like that. Um, um, they did get disciplined with spankings, you know. Um, I would say, but that neglect, childhood neglect and trauma. And I think I don't know if we I may have talked about this one time before, where childhood neglect, right? There was a time, and I remember this. I was in the sixth grade, sixth or seventh grade, and I was in a school play, and no one from my family came to see the school play,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Now, I get it. My grandmother had to work. She was working two jobs. She couldn't come see the play. Um, and because I was like the baby out of the household, because my grandmother had four children, my mother being the oldest, right? With my mother being the oldest, and then my aunt, and then my uncle, and then my aunt again, right? Four kids. The closest one to me was the baby, my grandmother's last child. We were 11 years apart. So we kind of grew up like sisters, so to speak. But everybody else was out of the house. They were gone. So there was no one to come to that play,
Mm.
me in the play, because my grandmother had to work. And my mother was at work. My uncle was at work. My other aunt was off in college somewhere. And my uncle was probably at work. Who knows? Who knows? I was 6 years old. Can't really tell you where they were at. But I still remember that. Okay. Some about attachment wounds. About, real love, right? I also remember my eighth grade graduation,
Mm.
right? No one came to my eighth grade graduation.
Oh wow.
I walked to the graduation, or my grandma dropped me off, but I walked home with my cap and gown in my hand after the graduation. So after the graduation was over, everybody, we're all taking pictures, right? Classmates were all taking pictures, and I'm watching my classmates leave with their families
Mm.
to go celebrate them. And I walk home by myself with my cap and gown in my hand. Now, once I got home, my grandmother did cook dinner, and my mother was there when I got home after the graduation. Um, However, it just hurt, like going through that whole process and no one was there.
Nope. I know exactly what you mean.
No
I know.
one.
You know, it's funny you should say that because I never, until you just said that just now, I never.
Uh-oh. So, so that grief is the grief of like never knowing real love is often rooted in the earliest relationships we have. And that
About that.
and that's the one with caregivers. So when a child experiences like inconsistent care, emotional neglect, or trauma, their natural ability to trust and feel safe in a relationship can be deeply disrupted.
Yeah.
And so what were you saying, Kareem?
No, so it made me realize I never realized until you just said it. I literally have like a flashback.
Mhm.
You know, my mom being there for my 8th grade graduation, being there for some of the plays. But it's a funny story. So
Mhm.
I don't remember this. My mother told my first wife this. I don't
Mm-mm.
remember this. It was so traumatic because I used to go to Fresh Air Fun for those from New York, who go upstate to like stay with a family for like the summer, whatever, like that. So I stayed with this African descendant family, and my hair grew out. Said they would let my hair grow out. I had a big afro.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came back home, went to the YMCA gym to go get picked up, and so I was the last kid to get picked up. And the lady was like, "Are you sure that's not your son?"
Mm-hmm.
And she's like way off, Like I'm in the middle of the basketball court, in the gym, and I'm crying. One of the counselors comes over. Oh, my mommy didn't forgot to pick me up. And my mom is over there in the corner talking about, that's not my son. I know my son. And the lady's like, just go over there and check him out. Maybe you just don't recognize him. A little European American lady. So
Right.
closer. And I'm like, and the lady with me is like, is that your mom? I'm like, I don't know. I can't see. I'm crying too much. Like 8 years old, something like that, right?
Uh,
I look up, I'm like, I think that's my mom. My mom's like, oh my God, what did you do to my son? Because I was outside so much that I
mm-hmm.
was blurple. So y'all can't see right now, but I'm dark. I was purple. Like I would blend in with the back of this blue right now. But my hair was
Right.
orange, like freaking Ronald McDonald. And she was like, what did y'all do to my son? And it was picked straight up. And it was just like, it was like crazy.
Oh
So
goodness.
she told my ex-wife that like she didn't recognize me. That's how dark I got. Because she was wondering why my hair is red. So that's where the story came out. Because she saw we were out in the sun when we were dating, and my hair the tips started turning red. She's like, you guys have red hair? And then she told the story. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't remember you forgetting me at the gym. She's like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Imagine if I did remember that, how traumatic it would be. Your moms don't recognize you. It's like,
Right.
but it made me realize, like I say, like she came to a lot of the stuff. She even flew out to Wisconsin to go see me graduate when I got kicked out of New York City public education. So she had to come out there to go see me graduate and take me home, actually. And like I didn't realize how much now that I have kids, and I tell my job to go screw themselves. Like I'm going to my kids' performances. Like I've done that since jump. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, bye. You know what I mean? It's like you can fire me if you want, but you're gonna lose all this production. And so, but that's just been my attitude. But I noticed there's still parents who don't do that. They don't think it's important to be there for their kids. But then they hear their kids talk when they get older, like you talking, and then they realize, oh crap, that was important.
Right.
And it's like, just because you dealt with it one way doesn't mean your children are going to be strong enough to deal with it and accept it the same way. And that's what I realized was I need to be there for my kids. And but yeah, but the funny part about all of that is I never heard my mother tell me I love me until the first time I got suspended when I was 13.
Wow.
So I didn't even know what she meant by it. I was like, what do you mean? What is that? I literally was like, what is that? What do you mean? She goes, I love you. I was like, and? Like, like I don't know what that means. Like, what are we doing here? Like what, that's supposed to do something? Like trying to manipulate me or something. Like, I love you. Like, okay, and
that's funny.
What does that mean? But it wasn't on TV at the time. It was even like on the Partridge Family, what else other damn shows we used to watch. You know what I mean? Like God,
the Brady
Bunch,
what's happening? Yeah.
Like nobody really told their kids that they loved them. It's just we were a different age group. Like we were born with armor.
What does that word mean? It didn't even hit the dictionary for us until I don't know until what we turned 25, I guess. No, maybe
25, 28, something like that. It's just like you started using that manipulation for other people. Yo, girl, I love you. I wouldn't do that. Don't worry about that girl number in my. Don't worry about that. Who that girl was? I love you. I'm with you right now. What you talking about? You start to realize that you can manipulate people with it. It's like, and then you realize like it had consequences. You know,
Yeah.
first time you get face down the
Yeah.
street in your underwear, I thought you loved me. You're like, oh, you witness it. First time I seen somebody chasing a dude down the street. It's wintertime, no shoes on, like just in his freaking boxer brief.
Oh goodness.
I must
But
have told
yeah,
you love me. Like,
that's one of the things. Like I really didn't hear like that the I love you from my grandmother not until she was like really up in age. Like I wanted to
yeah,
say once my grandmother got about past 75, and we'd be like, love you, Nan, and she'd be like, love you. She'll say, I love you. And I actually have a recording, a voice recording of her leaving me a message on my phone. Like I can scan it and it'll play the message, the voice message that she left me. And she was like, I was trying to reach you. No, she said, I missed you. Okay, love you. Bye. And I kept that recording on my phone because my grandmother never said, I love you. She really never said it. And I would say my mom was somewhat of my saving grace because when she did come around, when my mother did come around, she would always tell me how pretty or how beautiful I was and how smart I was and that she loved me. But again, my mother was the absent parent. You know what I'm saying? And my father, well, hell, we're not going to talk about him.
yeah,
You know, oh,
yeah,
that was
yeah.
irrelevant.
You don't need that one right there. That's a whole nother show. Shit,
Right,
that's a whole other show.
whole another show.
It's funny
So
because I like Mike. Oh, go ahead. Finish.
but like I said, yeah, you're right. That is a whole other show. But but attachment. They say attachment wounds form when love and security aren't reliably given. Right. So leaving like a lasting impact on how we see ourselves and others. So like we may grow up carrying a quiet sorrow for the connection we never really received and longing for love that feels safe, unconditional, and real.
Yeah,
And like trauma compounds this grief. So, and it can make the heart close off, protect itself, and like sometimes even forget what love truly feels like. So, when we grieve the absence of real love, we're often mourning not just lost relationships, but the lost possibilities and
yeah,
the chance to be seen, like held and valued exactly as we are. And that is so true. And that's one of the things on this podcast. Sometimes we bougie, sometimes we hood, is about transparency. And we talk about trauma. And Cousin Kareem, for you all who don't know, Cousin Kareem is not just Cousin Kareem because I'm Auntie Mimosa. Cousin Kareem, Cousin Kareem is my real cousin.
yeah,
And and he knows my story. Some of you do know my story. Some of you know that I experienced childhood trauma. And that childhood trauma not only comes from the beatings of being they consider discipline, but was the beatings with the extension cords and the switches and whatever they can put their hands on. But my childhood trauma also comes from being molested between the ages of 6 and 16. Um, and with that, being molested as well. So not only do I have the childhood trauma of molestation, I had abandonment issues because I felt like my mom did not care about me and she didn't love me. And then like at 12 years old, I look up, she's pregnant with my baby brother, and and now I have a little brother that she's taking care of while I'm still with my grandmother, right? And having to deal with all of these issues as a kid. Okay. So you talk about trauma compounds this grief, right? And then feeling like like really feeling or being disappointed because no one showed up to the 6th, 7th grade play. No one came to my eighth grade graduation. There were times where I sang on the gospel choir in school as an extracurricular activity, and no one came to the gospel concerts. I was picked up, I was dropped off, and I was picked up, but no one's presence was there. So, with that, here I am as an adult, right? An adult woman, and I operate in the masculine energy because I am self-sufficient. My I'm guarded, highly guarded. I'm highly guarded. And when it comes to knowing like what real love is, the only thing I can say is that or I've been asked like, have I ever fallen in love? And I say no. I have never fallen in love because the molestation took that away from me. It took that away from me. It took away my like knowing what it's like to have a first love, that puppy love. It took all of that away from me. So I have no idea what that is. Um I had, people say, well, how did you get married? Because I was in love with the idea of being married,
Yes,
and I was pregnant.
that's real facts, though.
Okay. I was in love with the idea of being a wife and being married, and I was pregnant. That's how I'm, but of course, my marriage failed because my ex-husband, he had no idea. And was it fair to him to have to deal with me and all of my baggage and all of my trauma and this compounded grief as an adult? Oh, not even really, I want to say as a young adult at 20. Okay. Was that fair to him? Probably not. He was
No.
24. But again, he didn't know. I didn't know. No one talked to us. We didn't talk to anybody. And you know what I'm saying? So I just knew what I did know, though, was that I refused to raise my sons the way that I was raised. And I was there for my sons so that way they knew what love really was. I was there, like, and Kareem, we talked about this. I was their everything mom, the basketball mom, the football mom,
The
the
basic.
baseball mom. I
Yeah.
took taekwondo with my sons. I volunteered at the school. I went on field trips. Even though I worked like two jobs, but whatever my sons needed, mom was at school. I was right there. Can I say the same for dad? No. And after Deej's tragedy, where he left us, and talking to my youngest son made this statement that, Mom, you worked hard for us. You were there for us. And he said, you were our hero.
That's nice.
So that let me know that the things that I did for them and showing them love was right on. It was spot on. But there's a whole nother aspect to that, but we'll talk about that later. Well, that's another.
It's true, because on the flip side of that, did the same thing, but because of a evil, contentious parent, I get pushed out, even though that was me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it was her too, because of my income. She was allowed to not work as my ex-wife, but every pair of shoes that they had playing sport, all the equipment, that was me. But somehow, and I'm gonna forget prefacing nothing. Basically, my ex-wife was so disgruntled that I made the paperwork seem like she divorced me. That she badmouthed me literally every day, to the point that my sons want to protect their moms always. As a son who had a mom that will grow up with my dad, I understand that. But I'm hoping and praying at some point that in their adulthood, when they have their kids, that they understand and they see what it was like from the male perspective, because all they looking at it through their uncontrolled emotional eyes of their mother and how they were raised as men from their mother. Now, I don't discredit women for raising the men. Obviously, you did. Obviously, mine did for me.
Mm-hmm.
But when you force your emotional turmoil, trauma onto your child, especially a male, how do you
All right. So we know like this grief can be ambiguous, disenfranchised, even anticipatory. It's like a will I ever know? And the grief of
yeah.
never knowing real love is often complex and layered. Sometimes it's what we call ambiguous grief because there's no clear beginning or ending and it's no tangible loss to point to it. But go ahead, continue, Cousin Green. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So no, it's just on that side, it's just like I wanted to be able to show. I realized like so learn behavior. I think that's what it comes down to. What you avoid, which I avoided, and learn behavior. We don't want to repeat the learned behavior of how not to pass down love to our children. With
Mm-hmm.
my sons, my two oldest,
Right.
I'm just waiting for them to wake up and realize
Mm-hmm.
that being a man in a relationship with somebody who is as vindictive and evil as she is, as
Mm-hmm.
their mother is, they're going to have to see through it. I can't guide them through that. They're going to have to see that on their own. But
That is true, and they will if they don't see it now, okay,
yeah,
because they're adults, and that's where a conversation where you may have to take the first step to have that conversation with your sons
oh, I've
to
done that.
say
I've
right,
gone
and
to
then
them and they just
okay,
refuse to talk. So it's just like, okay,
all right. So this type of grief, it can also be disenfranchised grief, which means it's a kind of sorrow that society doesn't always recognize or validate. And people might tell you, to just get over it or move on as if you shouldn't mourn something you never truly had. So Kareem, you were saying that you already went to talk to your sons.
yeah, I try to talk to them, call them up, go visit them, and it's just they don't. They're like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk.
Hmm.
It's just like okay, and I can hear. For me, it's like I can hear their mom and all that because what is there not to talk about? You
Hmm.
know what I mean? It's like I'm not coming up here rah rah throwing you against the wall forcing. You're grown. We're grown now. They're grown. I'm grown. Want to
Hmm.
have a conversation. For somebody to not, for a grown person, and you come and saying, let's have a conversation, they're saying no. That just speaks to
Right.
the immaturity and the emotion that they've
Hmm.
learned behavior from their mother. That's nothing to do with me. That's them and still being raised or it now this it shows me how they were raised by their mother still with the
Hmm.
emotional all that trauma and they
Right.
haven't grown past it to acknowledge it. Nobody's come to them and told them how they act.
Right. Um, so and also sometimes it can like this grief can feel anticipatory, which is like full of questions. And it's like, will I ever know real love? And it's a grief that lives in uncertainty and longing for a future that feels out of reach. And like all these layers make this grief difficult to express and even harder to heal. And you kind of watch people hold hands, argue gently, show up for one another, and something in your chest aches. And it's not from envy, but it's from recognition of what you've never known, right? So I say to that, and I know like you think your sons might experience that
Yeah,
anticipatory grief.
possibly.
Hmm.
Possibly. I can believe that. I can believe that.
Right.
It's just I mean, it doesn't help that we live in a place that's kind of outside the norm of the rest of the states where they
Hmm.
don't have to deal with a lot of the stuff that y'all back there have to deal with, because everything's kind of hunky dory out here. People get along for the most part, you
Hmm.
know. Things are kind of like laid back island style, island vibes. I mean, that's what it is. But I
Right.
think TV has a lot to do with, you know, the generation after us was raised on TV. We watched TV, but we had limited channels, you know.
Right.
And then, but now it's like Love Island, love this and love that and this and that. And then you got organizations like the church who you walk in there, I love you. It's like, for somebody who's guarded, that's a triggering word to walk up in some place and somebody tell you that they love you. It's like, why?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, why? What makes you love me? You don't even know who I am. And so
Right.
you go coming up and they step like, oh my goodness, like, ooh, you're one of those. And it's just like, okay, that I am. So are you not gonna love me now that I'm asking you questions? And that becomes a real conversation. And it was one that I dealt with a lot being an usher, one that head usher, because dudes would come to the church and they be guarded. And I'm like, what up, dog? You know what I mean? They be like, yeah, don't you recognize it? Come on, you bring it in. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't bring it in, and it's just like, and they be like, yo, dog. And I hear later on that say, well, if it wasn't for him, I would have never joined the church, because he wasn't one of those, hey, brother, we love you. Screw all that. You don't even know who I am talking about you love me. You know, you don't know what I've been through to love me.
Right.
You know what I mean? How you gonna love me through my situation that I'm going through? That's the question. Because I've been down this road before, and that's the. So going back to what you were saying before about being guarded, I think there's two type of guarded people. There's guarded people like you who be like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna maybe not, but it's like somebody who's just like, I'm not gonna project out. Then there's guarded people like me who's gonna project out. I'm gonna call you in the crap because what I realize is that you got people who like to use that word, or they use the text word LUV instead of the LOV. Then the I gets dropped off and it just becomes LUV. Oh, love you? No, I love you. I tell them I love you. That's different than love you, because out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean? And then you start to realize that, you know, like I told my daughter, I said, you know, I know you attached to your friends, but I'm gonna give you the real truth. Once y'all graduate and y'all start flying around the country, coming to college, you're gonna see come your sophomore year who your friends really are. You might even realize that during that first winter break.
Right, that connection, like that connection. Because I can definitely tell you that, you know, even though I spent 8 years in a Catholic school with the same kids, just about, right, and graduated with those kids, maybe one or two I stayed in contact with until high school, and then once we got into we kind of faded away, and then once I left New York, never had, you know, really didn't have contact anymore after that. And then when I, you know, moved to Atlanta and finished high school in Atlanta, I really made one close friend who we are still friends with each other to this day, and I call her my sister friend, right? And that relationship is awesome, because when I look on social media and look on Facebook and I see the relationship of my, you know, elementary school friends, that they've still been friends all the way up till now, it is somewhat hurtful that to think that I could not, or that I don't have a relationship with anyone from elementary school that lasted this long. But the positive side is I was able to gain a friend in high school in my, you know, junior year, and that relationship has lasted all these years. So before we get ready to close out, like, Cousin Kareem, tell our viewers, like, growing up, what did you think love was, or what was it supposed to be to you? What did you think it was?
Well, I had a relationship before, and based on this relationship, I don't know how it was for the other person, but it was like you spend time with that person. It wasn't physical. I mean, it was like, you know, you do kiss, hugging, petting, you know, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't about that. It was just the presence of that person felt like teleport. It's like you were teleported away from whatever you were going through. You know,
Mm-hmm.
growing up in Queens, back when we was growing up, it was so crazy. You know, between the fighting and the stabbing and the shooting, that it
Mm-hmm.
was nice to escape that. It was an escape. That's what I thought love was back
Right.
then in high school. And then I continued as I started the working phase and stuff like that. It was like that
Mm-hmm.
person that I didn't have to express how I felt or
Mm-hmm.
what I wanted to feel or like how I felt. I just wanted to be with that person and feel good. You know, it was
Right.
about a feeling. You know, that's what it really was. And as I got
Mm-hmm.
older, it's like it turned into more of being able to communicate without fear of one person getting hurt, being
Mm-hmm.
able to plan and build for the future, you
Right.
know, and
Right.
that's what it is. That's what it was for me, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as it is now. So I mean, but how about for you?
Oh, good question. That's why I asked you first.
Yeah, I trying to gather it up. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
why I asked you
it's
first.
a real talk though. But when you haven't
Yeah,
found it, it makes it harder, right? It
it
makes it harder.
does. It does because at my age, right?
What
52.
34?
I know you're so funny. I love it though. Thank you. But at as a 52-year old woman, and actually I'm living year 53. People don't understand when I say that, but it's okay. Will in year 53 on August 16th, or I will say some people say I'm turning 53 next month. Um, when it comes to like being in love and loving, right? The only two men that I can say and I truly, truly love were my children, my two sons. Okay. But that's a different kind of love, right?
Yeah,
That's different. With the loving your children is very different than me, myself loving a man. Okay. I have no idea what that is. Even though I look back over my relationships, because I wanted the same love that I give people, right? But I don't get that back.
yeah,
Because I'm a nurturer, I'm a caregiver, I'm a caretaker. I want to make sure everybody is good. Um, but I look for that back and I don't get that back. So as far as love goes, for me, it's in a box with a chain and a boulder in the bottom of the lake or the ocean somewhere. Uh, you know what I'm saying? I
yeah,
have love for my family. And when it comes to that significant other, whenever I get one, it's going to be loyalty. It's going to be loyalty over love. And
Isn't that funny? I find that I was just about to say that. It's like I feel like love right now for me is the loyalty sector of it.
it's going
You
to be
know,
loyalty.
because that's you realize that it's too easy for people just to step out.
Hmm.
The way that this world is right now, and the stuff that people are on doesn't make a difference if you follow religion or not. It's just
Right.
like there's too many people stepping out on somebody else, and it's just like, wow, you got everything.
Yeah.
You know,
And I'm
it's
not.
just I literally know a dude
Hmm.
who physically built a house for his wife,
Hmm.
bought her the car of her dreams, and
Hmm.
she still stepped out, got her whatever she wanted. This chick had every degree under her belt except for a PhD, and still didn't work. He's like, "Bump it, you don't gotta work. I make enough for both of us. Go
But
about
there
your
was
business,
something
raise the
missing.
kids."
There was
Yeah,
still
there was
something
something
missing
missing,
in that
and she
relationship.
didn't know what it was because he kept asking her. And then we would be at parties, and
Hmm.
she just be like the most unhappiest person. It's just like,
Hmm.
would it would and I asked, anyway, it's just
Yeah.
it's when you
That's
don't know you
yeah.
and what you want,
Hmm.
how you can't expect somebody else to find it for you. But
Right.
somebody else can bring it out of you if
Hmm.
that person lets you bring it out of them.
That's the key. That's why I say, when it comes to the next, like my next significant other, if there is a significant other, um,
Sorry about that.
it's gonna be difficult. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and not on purpose. It's not. me being difficult on purpose. It's just going to be difficult for they're really going to have to prove themselves in order for me to let my guard down. And even if they do prove themselves, I'm pretty sure my wall will probably be like halfway up, just in case. I live in survival mode for real now. I will probably really be living in survival mode. And because that, yeah.
Set up milestones. That's what I say. Set up milestones. Because you know why I say that? Because for guarded people like you and me, we have milestones the other way. Oh, you do this. Oh.
Right. So with that being said, the grief of never knowing real love is valid. And, we thank everybody for coming on and listening today. And we encourage like connecting with your feelings, journal prompts, online communities, and, therapy. Therapy, because therapy is important. And yes, I have been in therapy and probably still need to go to therapy. So with that being said, our next episode, there's going to be a part 2 to this.
Yes, has to be.
Going to be a part 2 to this. And the next episode coming up is actually about grief and addiction.
Ooh.
Yeah, tune in for that one. Grief and addiction. So, but there's going to be a part 2. I don't think we're finished with this topic. The grief of never knowing love.
We're
not done with this. And so there will be a part 2 to this. And then, like I said, next episode is, grief and addiction. Like how do the two go hand in hand? But with that, grief can be quiet, lifelong, and invisible. But, speak it out loud. And that's how we begin to heal. And that's what we do here on Sometimes We Boujee.
Sometimes we hood.
So we thank you for joining us today on this journey through grief, healing, and remembrance. Yes. Grief is not something we simply get over. It's something we learn to carry, and something that shapes us, and something that teaches us about love and resilience. As you move through your own process, remember to be patient with yourself. And be kind to yourself, and be gentle with yourself. There's no timeline, no right or wrong way to grieve. Honor your feelings, embrace the memories, and allow yourself space to heal in your own time. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. So feel free to reach out, share your story, or let us know how grief has shaped your journey. And if you know someone who might need this conversation, please share this episode with them. You can reach out to us on IG at Queen of Life Empowerment, or SBSH, which stands for Sometimes We Boujee, Sometimes We Hood, Grief Podcast. On Facebook at Sometimes We're Boujee, Sometimes We're Hood. And on TikTok at Sometimes We're Boujee, Sometimes We're Hood. Until next time, be kind to yourself. Hold space for your emotions, and remember, you are never alone in this journey. Take gentle care of yourself. You're carrying the most beautiful love there is. You don't have to walk this road in silence. Your love and is light, and it still matters. So, take care.
Peace and hair grease. Take care, guys.
It's a podcast dedicated to exploring the complex emotions of loss, the road to healing, and the strength found in remembering.